150 knots.
The crash investigation of Usair Flight 427 yields new information about its final moments. Good evening, I'm Sandra Bookman.
And I'm...
The official cause could take months, but tonight investigators have found evidence that is raising their suspicions.
Tonight we have Team 2 coverage of the crash aftermath, beginning with new information. Tonight, NTSB investigators are exploring the possibility that one of the engine's thrust reversers, which causes the plane to stop on the ground, suddenly activated while in the air. The new evidence came as recovery crews worked the crash site. This is the first video from the ground. In one of the plane's engines, investigators found evidence that the thrust reversers had been deployed.
So any evidence that there may have been a deployed thrust reverser in flight is something that demands serious attention. Now, the fact that one of these, after the impact this airplane suffered, is deployed is not evidence that that happened, but evidence that we need to pursue.
Witnesses reported the jet with 132 people on board hit the ground like a corkscrew. The coroner says it will be impossible to identify all the victims. The recovery effort, the investigation on that hillside, involves hundreds of people, many working on very little sleep. For them, their home, their office, is now a shopping center parking lot.
1, 2, no, I missed it. And give yourself a cab.
At the command center in Hopewell, members of the Pennsylvania Air National Guard worked in shifts, processing the crews as they left the crash site.
Kind of take them out of the stuff in stages to a point where once we get them to the end of the line, they're into what we would call a clean zone, and once they get back here, they're not passing on any contamination levels at any point.
Reverend Carl Neely worked the command center as well.
So maybe I can help them. Mostly you can just listen to them. And of course, the question is always why this happened. It's something that you don't have an answer for.
The NTSB has interviewed 21 witnesses, several concerned citizens, and a psychic who had a vision that the plane went down because of hydraulic problems.
Throughout the aviation industry, nearly everyone seems to have an opinion about what may have caused the crash. Our Team 2 coverage tonight continues with an airline consultant in Gwinnett County who has his own theory. Jonathan Seri talked with that consultant earlier this evening, and he joins us live from our Satellite News Center with details. Jonathan?
We interviewed Ralph Wallace. He is a software consultant for the airline industry, and he is also a pilot. Now, earlier today, he told Channel 2 Action News what he believes caused the fatal collision of Usair Flight 427.
No one event usually will down an airplane.
Instead, this flight computer expert believes a chain reaction of events led to the crash of Usair Flight 427. Ralph Wallace points to the final conversation between the plane and the Pittsburgh control tower. Someone in the cockpit shouts, "Traffic emergency,"
which indicates to me that he thought that there was a imminent possibility of a collision, and he made a rapid maneuver to avoid that to happen.
Wallace believes that sudden maneuver may have caused an imbalance in the airflow across the wings.
This wing is going to be generating a high amount of lift, which will flip the airplane over, since this wing is producing a lower amount of lift and is basically stalled at this point.
Federal investigators say the flight data recorder shows the plane rolled to the left and nosedived into the ground.
From 6,000 feet to impact in 23 seconds.
But if the crash was caused by the pilot taking evasive action, what was the traffic emergency? Wallace says it may have been no more than a false alert from an electronic warning system called TCAS.
TCAS stands for Traffic Collision Avoidance System. And this system was put on the airplanes probably about 4 or 5 years ago. It has not been a very reliable system, and it's very prone to false warnings.
Now, Wallace tells us pilots usually take a TCAS warning with a grain of salt unless they actually see another plane heading towards them. Now, perhaps this pilot thought he actually saw something, but again, this is just one of several theories, and it may be a while before federal investigators know for sure what caused the crash. And we are live in the Satellite News Center. Jonathan Seri, Channel 2 Action News.
Jonathan, thank you. Amidst the pain and questions surrounding the crash of Flight 427, one metro area family is celebrating its own personal miracle. A Vinings insurance agent was a scheduled passenger on that flight. He had even gotten to the gate, but a last-minute phone call saved his life.
And there are no you know, cold chills. There were no emotional surges. There was just a tremendous peace that settled in because I felt at that moment that, that I was in God's care.
As he spends the weekend surrounded by his family, that's how Bill Goodwin describes his feelings immediately after learning that Flight 427 to Pittsburgh had crashed, killing everyone on board. It was a flight he would have been on had it not been for a canceled business meeting and a persistent assistant.
It's really pretty overwhelming because I don't feel like a lifesaver. I really felt like I was just doing my job.
What Nancy Inman managed to do was track down her boss at Chicago's busy O'Hare Airport just in time for him to change his flight and head home instead of to Pittsburgh. But as Goodwin's family heard about the crash, they still weren't sure Bill wasn't on the plane.
Those first few moments when we really didn't know were just terrifying. I just started crying.
But this message, still on the answering machine, quickly calmed their fears.
So I got my ticket changed and I'll fly into Atlanta on Delta sometime tonight.
The best part was when he got home. I just wanted to sit and just cling to him, and I laid my head against his chest and I just wanted to listen to his heart beating.
The Goodwins are a close-knit family with a lot of faith. This has made them even stronger.
I've lived my life knowing that he had a plan for my life. And that moment was the confirmation that, that he really did.
The Goodwins told us that despite Bill's near miss, they are still not afraid to
marvel. But most people don't go to work by helicopter. 18 million people. When one of them needs medical help, many won't move.
They're so used to it in Manhattan to hear sirens all day long, so it doesn't faze them. They just think, oh, you know, it's regular everyday New York. Sirens blaring, horns honking, people screaming.
New Yorkers have a reputation of being self-centered, even rude. Is it just the local culture that stops most people from helping a social scientist pretending to be a blind man? Or is it a form of urban survival?
We clearly see a tendency for less helping the larger the city across the United States. Population density was not only the strongest predictor of helping, but a much stronger predictor of helping than I would have anticipated in my wildest imagination.
Across the United States, more and more people have become city dwellers.
If you look at the census information for the past 40 to 50 years, there's been a very big increase in the number of people that live in metropolitan areas.
La primera bola por la N, Rolando.
Longtime residents of a small city near Los Angeles now find themselves outnumbered by a wave of immigrants from Vietnam over the past 20 years, and some find it troubling.
It is changing the whole community. It isn't an American community anymore.
Nobody could plan for the arrival of 150,000 Vietnamese in Westminster, California. But when they can, city planners do design things to make the people who use them as happy as possible. Portland, Oregon is a city of about 450,000 in the Pacific Northwest.
If you live downtown, or if you work downtown, or if you want to get around downtown during the lunch, there's probably not a more efficient city to do it in the U.S.
Greater New York has 40 times Portland's population and perhaps more than 40 times Portland's problems.
I hear people expressing resentment at the fact that the way the world has gotten today...
I just want to know, like, why you're not up here performing.